Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're going to trace the incredible story of how our world got so, well, connected. And believe me, this journey goes back a lot farther than the internet or container ships or even airplanes. Okay, so let's just jump right in with a big question. When do you think all this global connection actually began? Was it a 21st century thing with the dot-com boom and all that? Or maybe with the invention of the telephone? Or does this story go even deeper? Well, the answer might actually surprise you, because this thing we call globalization, it's not some modern invention at all. It's really a process, right? A series of waves, each one building on the last over thousands of years. It's a journey that covers almost all of human history. So let's start at the very beginning, in an era that historians call archaic globalization. This is really where the story of connection gets started, long before the world we know today even began to take shape. Now, don't picture a single unified world system like we have today. Not even close. Instead, imagine these fragile regional networks, kind of like delicate threads just starting to connect distant communities. It was a world with lots of different centers of power, not just one, all cautiously starting to interact for the very first time. And what's really interesting is what was driving these first connections. It wasn't just about money. You had rulers sending out huge expeditions just for glory and prestige. You had pilgrims traveling vast distances for their faith. And people were searching for rare goods, not just for luxury, but for their actual health and survival. So famous routes like the Silk Road were so much more than just, well, roads for trading stuff. You got to think of them as the internet of the ancient world. They were communication highways. Along with all the silks and spices, you had new ideas, new technologies, religions, and social customs flowing back and forth, and they fundamentally changed the societies they touched. Okay, let's fast forward a bit to the next big phase, which kicks off around the year 1500. Historians call this proto-globalization, and it's where the whole nature of global exchange is about to change, dramatically. This really sets the stage for the modern world. During this period, the scale and the speed of all these global connections just ramped up like crazy. We often call it the age of discovery, but, it was also an age of conquest. This is when European powers really began to project their influence across the oceans, shifting the global centers of power, and basically laying down the foundation for the world we live in today. The really big story of this era is a huge shift in what was being traded. It wasn't just about rare luxuries for the rich anymore. This period saw the birth of mass market commodities. And here's the key. Things like sugar and tobacco were addictive. They didn't just satisfy a demand that was already there, they created brand new, insatiable consumer habits that drove colonial expansion on a scale nobody had ever seen before. But this explosive growth had a really dark engine. The massive demand for these new commodities created the plantation economy, a system that was built on the forced labor of millions of people. This created a new, and just devastatingly profitable, triangular trade system. It locked three continents, Europe, Africa, and the Americas, into a whole new kind of economic relationship. And yeah, it reshaped societies and generated incredible wealth, but it came at an almost unimaginable human cost. Now we hit the 20th century, and this is where all those historical threads we've been tracing are suddenly thrown into overdrive. Welcome to the era of modern globalization, also known as the Great Acceleration. Seriously, everything that came before, the ancient trade routes, the rise of commodity trading, it was all just a prologue. The last century or so has seen an absolutely incredible explosion of connectivity that has fundamentally remade our world from the ground up. And, you can literally see that acceleration on this chart. That massive spike represents the explosion in human industrial activity, in population growth, in energy use. This is the moment when we started to reshape not just our societies, but the planet itself. So what happened? In a word, technology. Technology basically conquered distance. Commercial flights turned weeks of sea travel into a few hours. That simple metal box, the standardized shipping container, completely revolutionized global trade, making it super cheap and efficient. And then, of course, the internet came along and made communication instantaneous. The world just shrank. And all of that brings us right here to today. Our hyperconnected world with all of its amazing benefits and its really complicated challenges is the direct result of this super long historical journey. But it makes you ask, what does it actually mean to live in a world that's this globalized? Well, for one thing, to manage this new level of dense connection and hopefully to prevent the kinds of conflicts that happened in the past, the world needed brand new ways to cooperate. So, global organizations were formed to try and create a framework for international politics and economics. This new political reality is perfectly captured by the creation of institutions like the United Nations right after World War II. It provided a universally recognized place for debate, for mediation between nations, a real attempt to manage our interconnected world through dialogue instead of just conflict. But it wasn't just about politics that connected us. For the first time in all of history, our entertainment, our music, and our consumer habits, they all started to go global too, creating this kind of shared cultural language across the planet. I mean, think about it. Reggae from Jamaica, Bollywood films from India, the World Cup. These are cultural touchstones that billions of people all over the planet recognize. That kind of shared experience is something that was just utterly unimaginable in any previous time in human history. But here's a really important thing to remember. This long story of ever-increasing connection isn't a guarantee that things will just keep going in that direction. History shows us that these networks can be pretty fragile. As the historian A.G. Hopkins warns, this whole process can actually go in reverse. And this leaves us with a pretty provocative thought. We've journeyed all the way from ancient caravans to the digital age. But is our hyper-connected world today a permanent state of being? Or is it just one more phase in a much longer and much more unpredictable story of human connection? What do you think comes next?